Gooding Services has a bundle for all budgets. You can be fully protected with emergency response for just $49.99.
You've reached Avery Silman, owner of Silman Ranch. I'm not available right now. If you're calling about an order, get in contact with Sanford Williard. He'll take care of you. Otherwise, leave a message, and I'll get back to you when I can.
Avery. You stubborn. Why aren't you picking up the phone or answering my text? I swear if you don't... Okay, look. I know how hard that had to be to hear. And I know you. You're stewing right now, running every scenario in your head, already deciding how this is gonna end. But it's over. It's done. I never meant for this to spiral like this, Avery. I thought it'd be simple. You talk to him, get some answers, and come home. But I underestimated him. I didn't think he was that dangerous. I was wrong. But I'm okay now, I promise. Lincoln's people are watching over me. Watching over your niece. Darren will never set foot in a Projexis building again. He won't touch me again. So stop. Please, Avery. Just stop. I know you. I know what you're thinking, what you're about to do. But I'm begging you, don't take this any further. Yes, he put his hands on me. Yes, he crossed that line. But I survived. We survived. And I will not lose my only brother over this. Call me. Call me now. We found Jasmine. She's alive. And that has to be enough. Please, Avery, let this go. Let the universe deal with that son of a bitch, Darren Fontano.
All right. Hello, guys. This is Braxcast Live. This is going to be the last episode of Braxcast Live I do for a while. My move starts next week, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, it won't be too much of an interim between this live stream and the next one I do. God willing, everything will go well. And sometime, even end of June, early July, I'll be in an apartment. I'll get all moved and settled in, and I'll have a new place. But we are going to be talking about Isom number 3. Of course, I have the collection page open here. This did end up making $660,000. Sold 11 books during its 75-day collection. Of course, these numbers aren't accurate to what Isom has sold afterwards, and it's been a decent while, probably at least a month at this point since the Isom campaign has closed out. Fulfillment began on the 28th. Of course, I got my Isom books yesterday. I uploaded my review of Isom Ill-Advised, and you guys seem to be liking that decently well so far, so thank you for that. And of course, probably am going to get into spoilers a little bit for Isom, but I did absolutely love Isom 3, and I think Eric put Isom in a really good position for the ongoing series, and the Ill-Advised Dark is really a solid launching pad for the Rippaverse. And the last book, Isom 3, between 2 and 3, I mentioned this in my review, between Isom 2 and Isom 3 coming out, there's been so many books that have come out for the Rippaverse that it is, I wouldn't say overwhelming, but there's already a really nice expanded universe that's already beginning to form. So we're going to open that up. I mean, basically, if we can go move that. stop the screen. We go to sharing the screen here. We'll go for this window. Yes. And then we'll add that just like that. I mean, we've got Ripazine number 4. All the Ripazines came out between Isom 2 and Isom 3 just about. Of course, with Ripazine number 4 actually coming out during the collection campaign, it hasn't, of course, fulfilled yet, but the Ripazine was launched between Isom 2 and 3. Of course, we got Yaira, we got Alpha Core, we got Gooding and Horseman, we got Zalen, we got Great War Separation. So there is already this growing lore that's forming, and Isom really comes in and gives us a really solid establishment of what the Rippaverse is, and of course Isom's character as well. Although I think the biggest thing that's lacking, or I should say my biggest criticism with the Ill-Advised Arc, is that it's all over the place. But even then, I personally really like it because I'm someone who's really invested in the Rippaverse, of course, as you guys know. But for someone who isn't, someone who's just getting into it, someone who thinks that the character of Isom is interesting, especially the first book, I think the second two really deal with this better on focusing on Isom more so than they. We got Andrew in the chat saying hail to you. So I'm not sure if you can come in, but if you want to gab with about Isom 3 a little bit, that's perfectly okay. Anybody else is welcome to come in as well. But I just read Isom 3 yesterday. It's a really good book, and like I was saying, Isom 1 really is a launching pad. That's what Eric said when Isom 2 launched back in 2022, almost 3 years ago, and it's gone really off the rails in terms of really being a launching pad, and so much of the Rippaverse is more than just Isom, even though it just started off as being Isom, right? That's all we knew about with the Rippaverse was just the Isom book. But now, of course, like I said, we're just talking about Great War Separation, talking about Yaira and Alpha Core. We've got Zalen and Horseman. We've got the Norfolka book. So Isom did this really good job at just establishing a lot, although it didn't give us a lot of depth as the reader. We got Garfield's Bizarre Adventure in the chat. Hail to you as well. Nice to see you as always. But I guess getting off track, or trying to get back on track, is that Isom 1 really goes into a lot, and basically every major character that's introduced, Yaira has her own book, the Alpha Core has their own book, Norfolka is getting their own limited series. You've got who else am I thinking of? We don't have anything for Cedric Gaucho quite yet, or Santuan, or Darren Fontano. But you think of Yaira, you think of Alpha Core, you think of Norfolka, and all those characters introduced have their own books. But this is the thing that I mentioned in the Isom review, is that you don't have to really introduce the entire universe in Isom 4, right? We already have an established Rippaverse, so Eric can do a really good, or really get into exploring the character of Isom. I think Isom 3 starting to do that. Of course, we had Lepredo and Max Salient getting introduced, and I think I probably should have mentioned, like, Max's introduction could have been a little bit stronger. He could have been a bit more pronounced of the character. It was really focused on, of course, Lepredo being that new character introduction. He had a much stronger introduction, and of course, a lot of the story focused on Isom, because it's called Isom number 3. Hopefully, we're getting Norfolka soon. And, of course, Andrew is saying that Cedric will probably appear again soon. Yes, I'm sure he will. I'm not going to probe you on when that exactly will be. Yeah, hopefully we're getting Norfolka soon. Although I believe I remember Eric saying that the pencils, Ronaldson was starting the pencils, a couple months ago. So I'm not sure. I feel like it's going to be a bit later rather than sooner, unfortunately. But Norfolk A Glorious Death is one that I'm really excited for. And it's one that when Norfolka was introduced in Isom, at the very end of Isom number 1, that intrigued a lot of people. So it was really cool that we got the Norfolka book. And it was a really good first Rippaverse. And I think this is really indicative that Eric and the rest of you guys, because Andrew's in the chat, we've got Zaid in the chat, Zaid Comics. Of course, I just ordered the People. I decided to order a copy of the People, so that'll be something I'll review after I move, but I'll have it so that way I can read it and review it. And I was really interested in that when I read the Lost Pages. But anyways, let's see. Yeah, so Garfield doesn't want any major spoilers, so I'm not going to talk about big spoilers for Isom number 3. I guess I kind of already was talking about some stuff with some characters getting introduced, but I really do think that the Isom 3 caps off the ill-advised arc quite well and gives us enough information to really make us invested and understand Isom enough to justify the rest of his ongoing series. So Isom 4 is going to be really interesting to see where Eric takes the story, especially given the fact that he does not have to introduce the entire Rippaverse with Isom number 4 like he did with Isom number 1. So the beginning of the next arc, if there's going to be like an arc for Isom, if it's going to be an arc, if it's just going to be Isom 4, which I think is be totally valid as well. Let's see, that's going to be really exciting to see. So that's the thing, is that Isom is in a really good spot. Like once you read Isom 3, a lot of stuff about his character is going to make sense to you. And then with that, it's going to be like, well, I want to read Isom 4 because he's in an interesting position. I actually understand a good bit about him now. But let's see. Andrew's saying the colors in Norfolk might be the best that he's seen, which, I mean, that's definitely saying something. Is Marcos coloring that? I believe I don't know. I feel like Marcos is coloring that. And yeah, Garfield said that he read Zalon. And I do like the character of Zalon. I think some people believe, I don't want to call him out. Resistance Publishing watches my reviews and he likes them. And if you watch the VOD or you're lurking in the chat, thank you so much. But he didn't like the character Zalon. I think he was like too flat of a character. If I'm remembering what he said correctly. But anyway, to each their own. But I personally like Zalon as a character. Very stoic, very competent. And of course, he's got this really cool design. He does a lot of really cool stuff in Zalon Will Kill Must Die. This is like a really interesting thing with the Rippaverse, because the fact that the interstellar aspect of the Rippaverse is not just limited to Zalon and Dirty Deeds. On Earth, they know about aliens because Cedric Gaucho, at the end of Isom 1, when Isom goes to Cedric or goes to Taylorsville to get his suit back, Cedric mentions getting materials, like I think it's like a Rubicon, or I'm forgetting exactly what the elements are, but those are things you couldn't get on Earth. So it implies that the intergalactic organization that Zalon's working with knows of Earth and interacts with them. So that's really, really interesting. But it's just stuff like that was stuff that was planted with the ill-advised arc, where this was just establishing the Rippaverse is not only just the Isom comic book, right? But just this expanded universe that is going to have a lot associated with it. And we're basically, I would say, we're at the point where that branching out is beginning to happen. Of course, we're getting the Great War of Separation, which is that foundational, story for the Rippaverse. We're getting, we got Zalon, and we're getting Norfolk, which is going to be really important. And we've got 2 issues of Yaira and the third one on the way. We've got Horseman. So there's a lot of stuff going on with the Rippaverse. It's still really early days, but there's definitely enough where the Rippaverse is an established thing. So, and that's the thing, is that Isom 3 really caps off that foundation. And we're going to just keep building, or I should say they're going to just keep building up, and the fans are going to be really happy with it. So I'm really satisfied with Isom 3. Of course, Cliff and Sebastian really knocked it out of the park on the art on that book. Of course, Eric gave us a really good strip, gave us some really interesting insights into the character of Isom. I think he could have structured some things a little bit better, could have gone a bit more in onto the exposition, especially considering how much people are invested in knowing about what makes Isom tick. But there's also the fact that you don't want to just, I don't know, blow up That's a bit of a crass way to say it, but you don't want to reveal everything all at once. So I can understand wanting to mediate between those two. So I think it was pretty good, but like, I'm not going to get into exactly why I say that because Garfield hasn't read Isom 3 yet, and I don't want to spoil it for him. But we got Student of God in the chat. Nice to see him as always. Absolutely fantastic. And it is really, really cool to finally have the ill-advised arc concluded, because to me, after Isom 3 is when things are going to get really interesting. I know Andrew knows exactly what that's going to happen at the Rippaverse, and he's like, "Oh man, it's already been interesting." So you don't even know what's coming up yet. I don't know why I hit view product here. Oh my god, what is going on? Like every time I click on Isom 3, it just goes back to this. That is a bit weird. If we can go to the store. Yeah, it doesn't know nothing about nothing. That's what Andrew says. But anyway, I was going to go over the covers for Isom 3. I mean, we got cover A, we got cover B, we got cover D. So that foil cover by William Conrad did sell out, which makes sense. It is an absolutely fantastic cover, that Will Conrad cover. And I believe I actually, and I'm going to show this off tomorrow, I got a perfect 10 cover. Got a mint one. I believe cover A is the one that you guys gave me as a mint one. So thank you so much for that. It's like my only mint slab. The rest, most of mine are 9.8 or 9.6, but I've got that one perfect 10. It's got a capstone in my collection. Yeah, really liking Kanan's cover A. And honestly, it's very suitable, or it's very fitting, I should say, that Kanan did the cover A for Isom 3, because he did the cover A for Isom number 1. And honestly, when you see a cover for the Rippaverse, that's what you see. That is the one that I've seen the most when people talk about the Rippaverse, because of course Isom number 1 made $3.7 million. It was this massive success, and it really, really took people by storm. Nobody was expecting Isom to make $3.7 million. Even guys like me who are really excited and really hyped up about this were thinking like, well, this is going to make like 500 to a million pretty easily. But the fact that it made $3.7 million, even people were like really hyping it up. And I guess, I mean, I don't necessarily like to name names. I was saying congrats for my Isom 3, but at the time, of course, you guys know that Ethan Van Sciver and Eric July were cool with each other when Isom number 1 launched, and Ethan was one who was saying it was going to like make $1 to $2 million because of the amount of email signups that happened. Like, it was like the weekend before, so I think it was like a Thursday. It was like the Thursday or the Friday before the Rippaverse, before the Rippaverse launched in Isom 1, in the Isom 1 campaign launched, and the amount of email signups that people got was in the like tens of thousands. And that's the reason why EVS said it's going to make $1 to $2 million. And of course, it ended up making $3.7 million. So I'd say, we can say all the stuff that we want about Ethan, but I think at the time he was really had his nose to the ground, or ear to the ground is the better term to use, on the enthusiasm that was surrounding Isom, that being a very unique phenomenon. I don't think you are ever going to see something quite like the launch of Isom. And of course, I could be wrong. Some new player could come out, launch a book, and it makes like $5.5 million or $7 million or whatever. But I think, I don't know, for the foreseeable future, I don't see there being a new player that comes in the game, releases their first book, and makes the amount of money that Isom number 1 made during its 75-day campaign. Like I said, I could be wrong, and honestly, hopefully I am, and you have something that is as cool and awesome as the Rippaverse, or plenty of the indie scenes. Hopefully, Dave from Genuine Comics releases like Perfect 10-6, and it makes that much money, because he definitely deserves it. So we'll see what happens. I don't want to say like 100% Isom 1 can't ever be outdone. I just think it's extremely unlikely because there was a really nice convergence of factors that made Isom 1 basically the perfect, gave Isom 1 the perfect environment to make the amount of money that it did. And of course, Eric and everyone at the Rippaverse has really taken that financial momentum, or I should say, financial mandate from the fans, and they've really built something incredible. And it's only going to get more incredible as the time goes on and more books get released, because we do have, and again, with Isom 3 coming out, I feel really, really positive about the Rippaverse, because this is the next era for the Rippaverse. This is when it really starts to mature and the storylines start getting more complex, and we're getting closer and closer to having that first event. So Rippa sold it well. He certainly did sell it well. That's part of it, is that he went about it really well. He was telling his audience that he was intending on doing this for about a good, I'd say, year. Because I was watching For Canon's Sake, he was saying, like, yeah, I'm launching a comic book company and I have aspirations to compete with Marvel and DC. Now, is he going to be able to do that in the long term? We'll see. But if anybody's going to create a legacy or a comic book company that is going to be remembered like Marvel and DC is, I think Eric has that possibility with the Rippaverse. Is that going to happen definitively? I'm not sure. And of course, the characters that Marvel and DC have control over have just this are extremely ingrained in the collective culture, or I should say the popular culture, because my grandmother read Superman comics back in 1939. So basically everybody knows who Superman is. Everyone knows who Captain America and Iron Man are. So there's just massive legacy that Marvel and DC have, and of course they've squandered it. But if you're going to have a new legacy in terms of comics, it's most likely going to be the Rippaverse, with just the fact that Isom 1 did so well, and they really have not slowed down at all. There was definitely a lot of hiccups, and there's definitely a lot of things that they can improve on, that's for sure. But they're really working at getting books done and putting them out, which other people aren't doing. That's what Garfield is. Let's see. I love Isom Free. Can't wait to send my dad a copy. Yes. That's cool cool comment from Andrew. Hopefully your dad enjoys it. My dad knows I have the Rippaverse books, and he read comics as a kid. I think he liked Tintin. But I'm not sure if he would like Rippaverse comics. Of course, I have plenty. So maybe I might give him. Honestly, I should give him my Alpha Core. I have an Alpha Core cover, and I should just leave it with him and say, "Hey, this is a Rippaverse book that I really like." And Alpha Core is, of course, a great book by Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett. Let's see. So you're saying that guy should focus on working on his book. It doesn't take 5 years to draw 48 pages. Well, I'm still waiting on my Rainbow the Brute order, and unfortunately, I'm moving, so I'm gonna. I feel reticent to contact the man and say, hey, I moved, and my Cyberprog 3 and my Rainbow the Brute, order need their address changed. And of course, that guy, I don't, I feel really unfortunate that, he has my information. So, but again, I don't want to go and curse the guy or say he's whatever, but that's an absolute mess. Let's see. So, Joe Garfield is asking if John's available to go on the Braxcast. I'm sure Joker would have no problem sending the link. I'll send the link because John is in the chat. It's absolutely wonderful to see John in the chat. Let's see. And I did not see John on Flashcast, but it's cool that he got on Flashcast. And I know Flashcast is a big viewership, so hopefully some of you guys got in on Heroic Tales #2. I definitely need to get in on Heroic Tales, but that's something I need to do. Like I keep saying, like moving. But once I move and I have an address I'm actually going to be at for the rest of the year, and of course the foreseeable future, then I'll catch up on all the campaigns I'm behind. But yeah, so I've got the link in the chat here. Of course, Sean is welcome to come in. You got Philip from Z Comics. You're welcome to come in as well. If you're not getting ready for your own live stream at about 7:30, I believe that's when they do their Friday night show, which I've actually been really liking. So let's see. I am going to live at 7, so I'm chilling for a bit. That is understandable, John. So it was nice to stream with you last week. But I understand you want to chill before you got your live stream. So let's see. We got Logic Finest in the chat. Evening, gents. I hope everyone is doing absolutely fantastic and having a blessed evening. Yes, I hope everybody is having a good Friday as well. And this has been a weird week for I guess a bit weird because I put my 2 weeks notice in at my job, and that was I don't know, it felt good. But I'm kind of like, around this time, right? When you're during your senior year of high school, like, June of your senior year of high school, you start, thinking like, oh, I'm going to miss this place. Right. And then that's what I'm kind of thinking. And then you remember like, oh yeah, I actually despise every single moment and every single thing just about of the experience. And that's like the two, things I'm going, with. So I'm glad you had fun on the live stream, John. And we've got Zay Comics, who's at the gym right now listening. And if it's leg day, I hope you're not skipping it. Because it was like, well, yeah, I have 2 leg days now, my cycle. And this is like my deadlifting day. And I bang out my 2 sets of RDLs. And then I started out with 6, but now I'm like 300 pounds. And I can't do like 2 sets of RDLs and then do 6 deadlifts with 300 pounds. So that's kind of, where I'm at, like 3 deadlifts. And that was enough. Like the third one, I was like, I might have passed out. But I powered through, and then I went and I did my post-workout routine where I sit in the sauna and I do Duolingo. That's what I've been doing at the sauna, and I do that in the morning. So I do that around I go on Fridays. I go with my dad. Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays now I go with my dad, and that's gonna next week's the last week to do that because I'm moving, and I won't won't be with me. So I'm gonna get a whole new workout routine. So it's probably going to be stuff like more calisthenics, push-ups, sit-ups. I got a steel club. I'm going to swing that around because I won't be around won't be around the gym, so to lift the weights. But if I can get, in the apartment that I move to, wherever I move to, I should say, if I'm close to a gym or I can get a weight set, that'd be fantastic. Because like the gym that I'm currently going to is like a 2-minute drive from my house. But fantastic. But anyway, that's a whole again, but I've been going to the gym every day since October 23. I've taken a couple of vacations. I went and I visited my grandmother in February, so I didn't go to the gym then. When I've gone camping to Porkfest, I still, I did a lot of walking. I was out in the sun, so I was pretty physically active. And I did some minor like recovery stuff, but basically every day, 7 days a week, go to the gym. And I go for maybe like 15 to 20 minutes. So I don't do like these like really like killer like be in the gym for 3 hours and just pump iron, like what Arnold Schwarzenegger and all those gym bros do. Of course, they're blasting gear like it's nobody's business, and that gives them the stamina to do stuff like that. And their entire life is just lifting weights. And while I like it, for me, it's just a general health thing. And hopefully, Lord willing, I can keep my health. I'm 27. Hopefully, I can be physically healthy. If I can still walk and hold the bar 45 pounds and do 1 curl and then put it back when I'm in my past the age of 75, I'll be very happy with myself, especially in my especially if I can keep that in my 90s. So if I can make it to 100 before my body starts shutting down and I become bed bound, that'd be fantastic. But whatever happens is going to happen. So you only have your health for a limited time, and it's going to be even more limited if you don't right now do what you need to do to take care of it. But that is so off topic. So Garfield's recently been playing Elden Ring, Night Rain, having a blast with it, but I understand why some of the fandom isn't into it. I haven't even gotten through the base game of Elden Ring. The only From Software game I've beaten was Sekiro, and I love Sekiro. Such a good game. But yeah, I mean, I think most people like what From Software is doing with Elden Ring. Of course, From Software is making that exclusive. I forget exactly. It was like the vampire hunter game. Basically like a slightly different version of Bloodborne, and I played a good bit of Bloodborne. I love that game. And that's a Switch 2 exclusive, and I nabbed the Switch 2 from Target. I wake up very early in the morning, and it's like around, I don't know, 13 a.m. I see it's available on Target. I'm at my computer. I'm like, screw it, I'll just buy it. And I bought it. So I got that bundle. But yeah, it is already hard to believe we're halfway through the year. Absolutely. And man, this other half of this year is going to pass by so quickly. And this is especially for me, because like this is the next like era, like next after next week, this time next week, when I won't be live streaming. So this is the last Braxcast live for a while. Of course, I'm going to try and maintain the content schedule when I just have my laptop, even though it's been on the fritz. But hopefully my laptop will cooperate with me, and I'll be able to maintain the recorded episodes of Braxcast. And I'm going to pre-record 2 episodes of Braxcast tomorrow. I've got the 4th set of Dokemon cards. I've got the Art of Cliff Richard. So those will be their own episodes. And that next week and the week after that will be those episodes of Braxcast. So the pre-recorded or the recorded Saturday episodes that I do shouldn't be stopping. And In the Velvet Room with Joke with the Fool, if any of you guys listen to that, that should not be stopping either. The week I'm at Porkfest, those episodes are going to be like one topic, very short. But hopefully after that, I'll start recording and going through the news cycle like I usually do. So that's like a bit of an update on my content schedule. Of course, going to try and keep doing the pitch daily poll as well. I'm going to have a bunch of daily polls scheduled and ready to go. And my next book, Debunking Gender Ideology and How to Manage Gender Dysphoria, that comes out on the 16th. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to release a video probably next week associated with that, that I've been sitting on for like over a year. It's absolutely hilarious, but it's going to be pretty embarrassing for me. John asking me how Isom Free was, and I personally really liked it. I think Isom Free gives a lot to the reader that that Isom 1 and 2 didn't. But if you didn't like Isom 1 or Isom 2, I don't think there's really anything in Isom 3 that's going to warm you up to Isom as a character and as a series. But it does give you a good amount of information, and it's also a really meaty book. It's like 144 pages. It's over 100 pages of story, which is massive for a comic. So I personally really liked it, but for you, John, I'm not sure if that would be the Rippaverse book I'd recommend. I think you'd like Horseman. I think you'd really like Bloodroof, because Bloodroof, in the name, she's Bloodroof. So you have an idea of who that character is. And I like Bloodroof a lot. So I think, oh yeah, of course, Horseman. I would recommend Horseman Welcome to Forest Park before reading Isom Free. But if it's, I'm sure it'll, be on sale, or there'll be a collected edition where Isom 1 and 3 will all be released, and it'll be, maybe $50 or so. And if you have that money lying around, you feel like, hey, but I wouldn't buy Isom Free on its own for you if you didn't like Isom 1 and 2, because I don't think there's anything, because it's not like you're a complete unknown to me. I don't think there's anything in Isom Free that's going to really inspire you to like the Isom book. But you do get some more information. So if there were some things you were like questioning about his origins, those questions they're not fully answered, but the beginnings of the answers, and you get these really solid answers. And I think they're really interesting. It happens in Isom 3. And I think in terms of the art, it's absolutely fantastic. So even if you just flip through the art, it looks beautiful. But let's see. I wish you luck on your move. Moving always sucks, but if you are moving to a better place, then it's worth it. Yeah. For me, it's going to be a better state. So I'm in New York, and going from New York to New Hampshire in terms of just a political climate, it's going to be a lot better. And also, I guess, I figure might as well in my childhood home. So I've been living at home. I'm 27 for my entire life. So I gotta, I gotta break out because I went to college. I went to college upstate for 3 semesters. I flunked out for a bunch of reasons, but I flunked out. And then I finished my associate's degree. So I got my associate's degree at community college. And, honestly, I just have the piece of paper, right? It doesn't really do much for you, but everybody will say, oh, you have to get educated. Yeah, so yeah, I know you have 1 and 2, John. So I guess a collected edition would make sense. So if Isom free goes on sale, so if it's on sale for like 20, 15 to 20 bucks, and there's another book that you're interested in, and you bundle that together, and it just makes the shipping a bit more justifiable, I would get it to see it just to get that conclusion. But if you did not like Isom 1 and 2, which I from my understanding you didn't, which I'm not gonna uh curse you out or anything. You cannot like a comic book. That's not a crime around here. I don't think there's anything in Isom 3 that's going to make you super invested or really redeem Isom 1 and 2 in your eyes. So I would honestly recommend, if you're going to buy another Rippaverse book, I'm not sure if you have Horseman, but I would recommend Horseman. Horseman's a really good book. And that's what I would read more. And then, of course, Zalen, What Kills Must Die is probably going to be a bit more up your alley, even though Zalen's not really like a name that really gives you much information, but I think he's a pretty cool character. And I think Chuck and Joe really knocked it out of the park, especially Marcos with his colors. That's a fantastic book. Garfield is saying Horseman is the best book so far. Hector's character was brilliant. I certainly agree with that. So I'm not the most, I'm a newbie to comics. And honestly, if someone wants to say like I'm a tourist in comics, that's perfectly acceptable. And I don't think that's entirely untrue. So I don't have the most experience, and I don't really have fatigue with the vigilante type character. But I think the way Chuck went about writing Hector, or Horseman, especially with his family life, and with the way his moral compass is set, and of course his origins, I think is pretty unique. Yeah, even though Punisher was a military veteran as well, so it's not the most unique in that sense. But I think the way Chuck went about writing Hector was unique and also relatable to the trope. So he did a really good job at establishing who Hector is, and that's part of what made Horseman such a good book. Let's see. So John is saying, want to pick up Horseman and Zalen. And yeah, that's where I would say you probably have more enjoyment. And of course, Student of God is saying to not listen to me and buy Isom Free. And honestly, I think Isom Free is a good book. But like I'm saying, like don't go into it, John, based on what I know about you, that Isom Free is going to be this ultimate redemption for you. I think it's a pretty decent book, and the art is definitely better in Isom Free than it was in 1 and 2. Not to say that the art in 1 and 2 was bad. It's just that Isom Free is just like something else that Cliff Richards was able to do, and of course Sebastian really knocked it out of the park with those colors. And you have Invisible Art Studio with the lettering, and they've been the letterer for the Rippaverse, and they've been doing a really good job with all the books they've been working on. Let's see. So John's honest about his criticisms, and that's why John is a cool dude. I agree. And I had a comment on the last Braxcast Live, or 2 comments from one guy, and I usually respond to every single comment I get. I didn't respond to those guys' comments, just mean to John, which I'm really disappointed in. I don't know if like saying, especially at this point, being like, hey, I guess you know who you are. It's like, oh, hey, like John and I are cool, and he's not a bad guy, and he's not coming at this from a malicious point of view. Like Garfield was noting, he's honest about why he doesn't like it, and he's not malicious towards Eric or anybody at the Rippaverse, which is where a lot of the detractors or the people who are hypercritical of the Rippaverse, a lot of it stems away from just saying like, oh, I don't like Isom, or I don't like Yaira, or I don't like Alpha Core, to the people who make Isom, the people who make Yaira are inherently bad people, and they're evil for running a comic book company. And then, of course, you have all this nonsense that comes up around it. And you had, Dallas Fan Expo, which was like 99% positive interaction. Of course, you had some losers that are trying to make a ruckus, but it's just the whole thing is that a society, or it's a culture of just internet drama farming. Edwin has a really eloquent commentary on that. And I think if you go through his account, what he says is stuff that I generally resonate with. Let's see. So John needs to finish the Isom story. I don't disagree with that, John. So John, if I would say, if since you have 1 and 2 and you've read 1 and 2, I think it'd be worth it to read 3, and then based on what you think of 3, then you can either continue with Isom when 4 comes out, or not. But like I said, I don't think Isom 3 for you in your situation is going to redeem it for you. Although I could be wrong, but I personally really liked Isom 3, and I like the whole ill-advised arc. But of course, I'm a super fan of the Rippaverse. So part of what makes Isom so interesting and intriguing to me is all the implications that it has for the broader Rippaverse. And if you're not the most invested in the Rippaverse, then of course, I think your enjoyment and investment in Isom, especially the ill-advised arc, which is basically all the Isom we have right now, is going to be a bit muted, or even viewed negatively. Let's see. So yeah, John doesn't have malice. I agree. He's a student of God. Let's see. So enjoyed Zalen as well. The way Zalen interacts with his crew was the most interesting thing to me. I agree with that as well. It shows that Zalen is this really competent character, and he I'd say, I'm not sure if like empathy is the right word, and I think to some degree, especially with Solus at the end of the book, I think it's indicative that Zalen has like an empathetic side to him beneath all of that stoicism. But he is this extremely competent character, and he uses his competency to keep a tight ship in a very literal sense. But that's really what I have. It's really my take on that there. And I 100% agree with you. And that's one of the reasons why I find Zalen to be such an interesting character, and that's why I think a mini series for Zalen would be interesting, especially with the way Chuck ended the especially the way Chuck ended the ended Zalen. So yeah, so Student of God is telling me to pull up the upcoming Ripascend comic, and I think he's talking about and he sent it to me. He sent me this. So we'll put this here. And this is Death Shroud. So we can open up Death Shroud and a new link. So you've got these two characters, and I don't really know anything about Death Shroud other than the fact that it is. So no malice. I want Eric to see. So yeah, John, you don't. You're preaching to the choir on that one. So we had a nice conversation. I met you in person. You're a very nice guy. So absolutely not. So John is just a really cool guy. Has a really nice collection. Very knowledgeable on the medium. Very passionate about heroic tales. In fact, let me get heroic tales. Let me spam that link in the chat, because I really loved heroic tales #1. I definitely am going to back #2. So I think John does great work. This is going to be like a 172 pager Death Shroud. So it's going to include, to my knowledge, the original, I think, 60-ish page book that launched on Kickstarter, made about 31K. And it's going to have like 90 to 100 pages of new content all in one book, which is really, really cool. So that is that. So yeah, Zay's got to grab Heroic Tales. Yeah, come on, get on it. I've read and I reviewed Heroic Tales #1, and I really liked it. So I had 2 stories, which was Father's Day. That was the main story. This introduced the patriarch, and that's the main character. And of course, you can watch basically like towards the end, the last few minutes of the video that I did with John, and he talks a lot about Heroic Tales when he shows off all the books that he has on his spinner rack. If you want to hear, John's commentary on Heroic Tales, but that first book, Heroic Tales #1, had Father's Day, which introduces the patriarch, and then of course you have The Suit, which was the backup story, which I thought was a little bit like weak, because it was like a bit vague with how it ended. It was pretty short, but I think it was a pretty interesting concept, and for a first comic, it was a really, really well done effort. And of course, Renzo on Father's Day really knocked it out of the park with how that book was drawn. So yeah, not every comic book fan is a fan of every comic book, and that's 100% okay. That is the best way to put it, Andrew. Very. I mean, that's why they pay you the big bucks to be the editor at the Rippaverse, right? But this is the Death Shroud account. So really, I mean, I love this art. Like all this art that's associated with Death Shroud is really cool. But this is the base. But of course, you get the really cool logo. But yeah. So Death Shroud is going to be launching relatively soon, from my understanding. So we'll see how the fans respond to Death Shroud. I definitely think this is going to be something that's more, that's really up the alley of the Rippaverse fan base. Like not Achromatic Chronicles. Achromatic Chronicles was an all ages book, and for that people were, I'd say that's a bit out of the purview for some of the more, say, like adult audience that's into the superhero comics and the action comics. Even though I really liked Achromatic Chronicles Blue and Green, I did an overview on both of those. That was really good. So I liked what Jay did with Achromatic Chronicles. But that's not like it's more of a it's aimed for all ages, it's aimed for kids. So some people it's not going to jive with them. But I think Death Shroud's going to jive with a lot of people. And Mighty Golden Patriot, that book made. So far has made $90,000. So we'll see about that. Let's see. Go to the media on that account. Really sick art. We'll go to the media on that account. So yeah, we'll click that. Ooh, man, this is really cool stuff. And then of course we've got this one here. We can click the arrow. Ooh, man, that is. Oh yeah, this is always like characters like this. Even though, man. Oh man, for someone like me, is like that. Those are the two sins. I think the 7 deadly sins. Lust and sloth are probably the ones I struggle with the most. If I want to be personal, but yeah, I mean, this is like really like hyper realistic horror stuff. Looks like a Groot there. Of course, I think this is stuff from like Marvel, but yeah, this is Death Shroud. So you're getting Chad Larson, Marion Dollhouse, Dream Key Studios, and this is a mock-up of what the Rippaverse book is going to look like. And as God noted, I mean, if you look at the spine of this book, this is going to be a thick boy. Let's see. So yeah, Garfield, I agree. This is definitely something that's intriguing me. So I'm going to see. I'm going to definitely check this out. And of course, it has the Rippaverse sky, and this is definitely something I want to say obligate, but definitely something I really want to review. And one of my quests, one of my new ultimate goals in life is to become the indie comic book review guy. Not just a indie comic book review guy, but the indie comic book review guy. And I definitely am slacking on that. And of course, I'm not going to be able to put out reviews for a while. I think since I've been getting digital, since all the copies for Vatican City 1 and 2, I got digital previews. I could probably do the review of Vatican City number 3, which is the conclusion for it. When that comes out, it just depends when it comes out. But it's definitely something I want to do like the month it comes out. Of course, Battle Beast number 2 comes out next month. I really like the first issue of Battle Beast. It was really good. So I think like of like I think Image is probably basically the only one. I think Dark Horse is publishing Vatican City. So that there actually is some good stuff. So you can go to a local comic book shop and you can find some decent stuff there. It's just most of it is not going to be from Marvel and DC. I'm not really aware, and this is probably a bit due to my ignorance of like any series from Marvel or DC that's really got the fans interested. Of course, they apparently made Black Panther white at the end of one comic. I think it's just indicative of how desperate they are. But man, that's an absolutely hilarious thing. If that happens in the MCU, which I doubt it will, that would be absolutely hilarious. But that's really where it needs to happen to have the sort of like cultural effect you would expect it to happen. Because I'd say the majority of the people who go Wakanda forever and are very passionate about the Black Panther as being, representative of the, the Black culture, Black experience, whatever you want to say. They don't read the Black Panther comics. And it's not like I do either. So I'm not saying this from like, I read all the Black Panther comics. I know everything about Black Panther, and they don't know. But it's just the people who will claim to be so invested in Wakanda and the character. Well, haven't read the Black Panther comics. And of course, I think there's a decent, I'm not sure if it's all people that think, or probably some people that think Wakanda is a real place, or it was a real place, then it was colonized by the white man. But that's that's a whole other thing. But yeah, white Black Panther is hilariously silly. I somehow have over 10 subscribers and I don't even make content. It happens where people will just subscribe to a channel for the lulz. Of course, I have about 137 now, so I have the YouTube studio on my phone and I check it obsessively every day, especially since I uploaded the Isom, well, I say Isom ill-advised review, since I reviewed all 3 books. And it was a very, again, my typical review style is I write my written review, and then I go down, I put the book down, and once I get into a good stream of consciousness, I just film that. I cut out the beginning, I cut out the end, because I do like 3, 2, 1, and then I slam the book down and I say, hey guys, Joker the Fool here. Here's my review of the best comic book ever made. And it's Horseman. But yeah, whatever. So let's see. Spider-Man and Wolverine is awesome. First issue was last month. That's cool to see. But yeah, I mean, if you have anybody who's decently competent, you could make a good Spider-Man comic. You can make a good Wolverine comic. And again, like I was saying earlier in the show, these characters are legendary, man. Especially Spider-Man. Everyone knows who Spider-Man is, and I love Wolverine as a character. I think I have an X-Men Origins floppy, like one of those floppies that's printed on like the crappy magazine paper, and like it has the ad to tell you to not smoke pot, because so. Like that 2-page spread where you're reading through the comic and you have to see like, do you want to become a professional remote control operator? Don't do drugs, stuff. Because that comic, I think when it was like 2005 or so, which was like the end of the war on drugs era, the Just Say No era. Let's see. So, in my opinion, what is the favorite independent comic you've bought so far? Now, are you going to say? If we're going to say with the Rippaverse, I'd say I definitely think Yaira is my favorite one. But if we're going to exclude the Rippaverse, and I have to think of all the indie comics that I have read, and which one is my favorite that I've bought, I don't know. I really like Perfect 10. Common America is really, really good. They're really good stuff. I think I don't know. Honestly, some of the Narwhal stuff has been really good for me. So like Earthbound was a really interesting story. I love Narwhal's style, and that's what got me like so into Narwhal was Earthbound. So man, it's hard to say because there's been so much good stuff. But I think one of my highlights is Truth, Justice, and the American Way that Gabe El Taib did. Because when I read that, I read like a really like good Image comic. So I've read all of Invincible, and when I was getting to the end of Truth, Justice, and the American Way, it just felt like that to me. Like it just had that feeling of reading a really good Image comic. So that is it's probably one like Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Earthbound, Perfect 10. I love Perfect 10 as well. So what Dave Ring does with Genuine Comics is really good. And then I think Common America as well. So it's a lot of so there's a lot, but I think yeah, my highlights probably, if I had to pick just one, I don't know. I think Perfect 10 comes out to me as one that's like really, really good. Because Pow is just such a good artist, and I really love Dave's passion at Genuine Comics. So you guys better go and get a couple of Perfect 10. And I got Perfect 10, my issue 5, my Crossworlds number 2. But that's something that I got to focus on packing up all my crap, and then hopefully it'll come to me in New Hampshire, and then I'll get a new filming setup. And then that will be one of the first books I review, along with the Emerald Array from, let's see, from John Delarose. Let's see, non-mainstream SOG, independent like Image or a non-mainstream. So yeah, no, Garfield was getting at like the real indie scene, like where books that you can't get at your local comic book shop, and ones that you have to buy online, for the crowd funds and everything. But yeah, I think that's my answer. If I'm going to have to go with like one series, I think it'd be a toss up between Common America and Perfect 10, because like Tim and Mark and Iconic Comics just put so much content out with Common America. Like, it's ridiculous. There's over 10 volumes. The manga is going to be fulfilling in a couple of months. So they are really diligent workers, and they're also people that have gotten flack from the same group of people that don't like the Rippaverse. So if you're productive and you're actually doing something, then you're going to have the crabs in the barrel try to drag you down. Unfortunately, John, who's in the chat, that's fallen victim to this, and that's really unfortunate. So I really just want this indie comic scene to be positive, where we actually read the books and talk about them, which is why part of the reason why I'm reviewing the books, which is why I said my goal in life is to become the indie comic book review guy. That's one of my things. Right? Again, there's other things above it. No, like theosis, becoming one with Christ's will. That's, of course, at the very, very top, making sure I'm a good son, a good brother, even though I'm not far from that. That's also a priority. But yes, definitely becoming the indie comic book review guy. That's one of my big goals in life. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to become a husband anytime soon, but I think I'm perfectly okay with that. See, I have 7 to Eternity really high on my top list of comics. Have not heard of that one. We added character bios to our site as well. Yeah, that's a really cool thing the Rippaverse did. I definitely got to check those out. So you dropped the new collected issue of The People today, shipping them out on Monday, 40 pages so far. Yeah, so I bought one of those. So be sure to ship that out to Monday to me. Hopefully you guys get it to me by the end of the week, so that way I can pack it up with my stuff, and that way it'll be easier for my parents to get it for me, because I want like everything that I'm bringing with me in like one location. They just put it on a truck and then they get it to me, and then I have all my crap wherever my domicile will be. So that's the plan. Let's see. So Garfield said, I heard TJA was really good. I'm not sure what the acronym for that is. But see, Logic Fine is saying the under 35 crowd at DC says Superman is problematic. They are the ones who changed the slogan from Truth, Justice, the American Way, according to my daughter's friends at Warner Brothers. Yes, I was like Truth, Justice, and I forget exactly what they changed it to, but this was a while ago. That's one of the reasons why Gabe left DC, because he was the colorist for Superman. If you guys remember it, then it was like fall of 21 when he left DC and he went on like Fox and said like, I'm tired of all this woke shit. I'm paraphrasing. That's basically what he said, and that was his big like breakout. And because of that, Gabe and Eric were able to link up with each other, and that's how he became the initial series colorist for Isom 1 and Isom 2. And of course, he's got Big Man Comics, he's got True Justice in the American Way, which is what Garfield was talking about. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, True Justice in the American Way, just got it. Let's see. So I'll be talking about it a bit tonight. Yes. So open that up here. Put this here. So yeah, The People. So I bought this, and I'm really interested in this, and I'm one of 3. So there's only 50 available. And what you guys did, I mean, this art looks fantastic. But you see what they did is that they have a blank cover. So this is for you go to a con and you meet your favorite artist. And I honestly want to go to a con where, and I think it's one of my like ultimate trolls. I have a Cyberfrog hoodie and I have the 3D asset shirt, so that's my uniform. And then I go up to Eric, and with my People cover, it's like, can you draw the people and horsemen fighting each other? And I think that'd be really cool to have. Basically any. I mean, cool if Joe Bennett was there. Yeah, I think he'd do a fantastic job. But like Cliff Richards or Kanan White, of course, draw something like that. That'd be really cool. But having like any Rippaverse artist draw like the horsemen and the people, like duking it out, I think that'd be a really cool thing to get drawn. So that would be sweet. So yeah, that's definitely something that I'm going to intend on doing. So we'll see if I can make that happen. But that is my idea. So let's see. So James Gunn didn't make that change. It was the under 35 crowd, but people go with what feels good instead of information from people who work there. 100% agree. And I think it's like the 35. I think it's more or less the under 45 crowd, Logic's finest. So right now, I'm 27, so I'm old Gen Z. So I'm basically the oldest of the Gen Z cohort. Because Gen Z starts around 96, 97. I was born in 98. So I'm basically, like I said, the oldest of Gen Z. And the older millennials, the ones who were born in the mid to early 80s, are really established in their careers. And a lot of these, women are very urban, left leaning. And these are the ones who are in the HR departments, who are in the upper echelons of these creative studios. And they are the ones that are absolutely sanitizing and making entertainment as awful as it is. So I think it's more or less that, like, between 35 and 40 crowd. And then of course they've got a legion of interns that are around my age that just think everything is heteronormative, white, sexist, male capitalism, or whatever buzz term they're going to decide is apt to describe the oppression this week. And of course taking basically the ethical foundations, the civilization that was built by our forefathers, who were white Christian men, especially in America, if you're thinking about the founding of this country, and then taking all of that work. That's your moral and ethical foundation. You borrow that, and then you use that to try and construe basically everybody in the past is evil, and saying that we have to radically change society to be on the right side of history, quote unquote. But it just, you see the fruits of our modern secular society, not only in the entertainment space, with comic books and movies, that's one thing, but you look at general society, you look at the birth rates collapsing, you look at the rates of depression that people have, you look at all the social instability, the crime rates in the urban areas. It's all awful, but that is way out of the scope of this show. So let's see. The old phrase is American is mom, baseball, and apple pie needs to come back in media. It certainly does. But the issue is our country is so fragmented, and yeah, I would say, yeah, it's so fragmented. We'll go back to just a Rippaverse site, give you guys some cool visuals here. But yeah, our country is so fragmented that it's really hard to get us unified under one American culture. And what you guys are thinking of, and especially Logic's Finest, who's saying, it's not quite accurate. The under 35 for the driving force, the 35 to 45, just follow along our liberal sensibilities. And I suppose, but the point I'm making is that these, the 35 to 45 are the ones that have to approve the decisions that these under 35s are making, and they're also the ones that hire them and keep them on board. So I think it's a combination, and like I said, I think it's that older millennial generation that's really ensuring that this stuff happens. And of course, I think you got the younger millennials, and I think that's where, the 35 and under really starts. And I think that's the peak. That's really ones who are making things as awful as it is in not only just the culture, but just like education as well. Most teachers are women around that age, and they, a lot of them have no boundaries with their students. You've seen all of the really awful headlines where these, scandals where these, 16, 15, even some as young as 13 or 12 are in these horrendous scandals with their teachers. And these are female teachers that are in their mid 30s, doing stuff with teenage boys that they should not be doing. So you've got this absolute mess of society, and a lot of it has to be owed to these I guess around 27, which is my age, to 35-year-old women. I guess that's what Logic's Finest is saying, just getting into the social institutions and then corrupting them with homosexual communism. And I will stand by that. Let's see. So back to my corner to have a beer and enjoy the conversation. You have a good night and a good weekend, Logic's Finest. And thank you for complimenting me on my good point. Let's see. Now tell us, Joker, how did Rome triumph over Carthage? Now, the Carthaginian Wars, I'm not the most knowledgeable on. Of course, Hannibal Lecter crossing the Alps with the elephants, so it's not something that was to be expected. Of course, I lost a lot of men on that journey, and they almost lost that battle. But really, once the Romans were able to repel that attack, They took Carthage, they salted the lands, and that was the definitive defeat of Carthage. And of course, I think the Romans pretty sure had Greek fire as well, and that helped them establish their naval presence. But yeah, I'm not the most knowledgeable on the Carthage, the wars of Carthage. But yeah, Carthage was a interesting society, or I guess an interesting civilization that was in northern Africa. So with Rome winning the wars in Carthage, that really gave Western North Africa control to the Romans, and they had that control basically for the entire Roman civilization. To my knowledge, of course, 476 AD is when the West falls, and basically all that became a free game. And now that region of the air of that world is basically part of the Arabic world. Of course, you had the ethnic group the Berbers. You had Mali, which is much more to the west and a bit further south. And of course, I forget, you had Mansa Musa. And he was very notable, and he was a Muslim. He apparently went on the Hajj, and he had all this gold because he had the gold mines. I don't know how I'm getting to Mansa Musa, but it's a kind of the same. It's northern Africa. So a little Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal the Great. Hannibal Lecter is a great character, lol. Yes, Hannibal Lecter is a great character. But yeah, no, I'm thinking Hannibal. If I'm getting it correctly, is the Hannibal who had the elephants crossing the Alps, and while he made a lot of progress, he was not, to my knowledge, able to completely take over Rome. And once that front was lost, the entire war turned to the Romans. And of course, there's that famous story of the Romans salting the earth of Carthage, not allowing anything to grow, and they were able to take complete control of northern Africa, became Roman North Africa. And of course, eventually they got control of Egypt as well, Ptolemaic Egypt, because if you know, with the Macedonian Empire with Alexander the Great, he conquers from Macedon to basically around Pakistan. So he has this massive empire, and he dies at the age of 30, and it gets split amongst his generals. One of them is Ptolemy, and Ptolemy establishes Ptolemaic Egypt. So you have this mix between the Coptics and the Greeks, and that's where Cleopatra traced her lineage to. And then eventually Cleopatra and I believe Mark Antony were not able to win over with Julius, and then eventually Augustus. I think it was Julius actually, and Julius is able to conquer Egypt and integrate it into the Roman Republic, and of course it then becomes part of the Roman Empire, and it remained part of the Roman Empire until the rise of Islam, I believe, because that was part of the Eastern Roman Empire. So that was governed by Constantinople, and of course that survived the fall. And it wasn't until I think about the 8th century when you had the I believe it was the Abbasids, or probably might have been the Rashidun or the Abbasid Caliphate that was the ones that had the massive expansion. I know, of course, the Umayyads had the massive expansion, and they were able to get into Spain. But they were able to invade Egypt before that, and that was the first contraction of the Byzantine Empire with the Islamic conquest. But let's see. Garfield's Bizarre Adventure, standing by Trajan being the greatest Roman emperor with Aurelian as second. I don't know too much about Aurelian. But yeah, I mean, Trajan died in 117 AD, and that's when the empire was at its territorial peak. So, I mean, I guess, you got me talking about the Roman Empire, Garfield. So we might as well go and just search up Roman Empire, right? And you look at any picture, you look at the picture of the Roman Empire, and you see right here. Open the image in new tab, and then we'll just close a bunch of stuff out, so that way, okay, here we go, and we'll so this is the Roman Empire, right? And this is about where Carthage. You see Carthago. If we can zoom in on here, so you see Carthago. This is where Carthage is. And then I was talking about, you don't see it, but it's be off from here. But yeah, this is where the empire hit its territorial peak. So Trajan had this expansion. I forget. I'm not sure if might have been. I don't think it was Tiberius who invaded Britain. So Julius made contact with the Britons. And then Augustus wanted to invade Britain, but he never things didn't line up for him. So I think it was probably around like the 70s or so, like the 60s, the 70s. So it was after the crucifixion of Christ. And is when Britain got invaded. And of course, you have Hadrian's Wall right here. So Hadrian comes after Trajan, and what Hadrian does, and I think this is one of the things that makes Hadrian such a good emperor, is that instead of trying to expand into Arabia, or trying to take over the Parthians, or trying to push past the Danube and conquer the Lombards and the Visigoths and the Germanic tribes, he goes visit every empire, every province in the empire, to my knowledge, including Britain. That's why Hadrian's Wall is built. And he builds up the empire, and that is what allowed the empire to maintain in the way that it did until 476. Of course, you have, I believe, it's the crisis of the 1st century. You had like the Tetrarchy, and then you had this general instability of the empire. You really had this return to Roman excellence with Constantine. So, of course, Constantine in 312, and I think it was, can't forget his name, was it Linnaeus? I forget exactly who was his co-emperor in the West, but he was able to defeat him. He issues the Edict of Milan in 313, which legalizes Christianity. And then 12 years later, you have the Council of Nicaea, and that institutes Christianity as a state religion and also establishes the Nicene Creed. And then it's in 381 when the Council of Constantinople adds to the creed, or I should say clarifies the creed, because you had the heresy of Macedonianism, where you had people who were saying that the Holy Spirit was not God, which is just, one of the most heretical things you can say. But they had to add that to the creed that really affirmed the deity of the Holy Spirit. And then also you have the four marks of the church, that it's one holy Catholic and apostolic church. But that's really, I'd say, when you had like this period for a little bit where you had the Christian, or I say Roman Christendom. That's probably the most interesting period of Roman history, and this happens after 117 AD. So where the borders were approximately the same, there was some contraction, but basically you had most of this. You had this is, you can call this Anatolia or modern day Turkey. You had the Balkans, you had the Italian peninsula, you had all of Iberia, then you had northern Africa, and especially Egypt. Egypt's very important to the Romans because that's where they grew all their wheat, because the Nile, of course, as you know, is very fertile. It has that routine flooding, has all that silt from the Nile River, so it's a very fertile region of the world. That's where the Romans grew a lot of their grain and their wheat, and that's why Egypt was such a strategic a necessity for the empire. But yeah, that's my little rant on the Roman Empire. So I think Garfield loves to get me into the ranting on the Roman Empire, but I love that before. So I heard a joke before. What's the difference between a Northern Englishman and a Southern Scotsman? Hadrian's Wall. Oh yeah, so one of my favorite things is that there's actually etchings of male genitalia on Hadrian's Wall. So I love the thing that there were two Roman legionnaires standing guard at Hadrian's Wall like 2,000 years ago, and once, let me do this, and like that, just like etches in that graffiti of male genitalia. So as a species, we really haven't changed that much. But that's my most hilarious. That's my most hilarious imagery. But it really just shows that a lot of what makes humans tick is inherent to our being. That's one of the things that you'll find with basically any ancient, looking to any ancient history, is that a lot of things that drives humans, a lot of these qualities of humanity, is always present throughout the age, or I'd say always present throughout the ages. And it gets lost because a lot of, basically all we have of the ancient world is, we've got the inscriptions, we've got, we've got stelae, we've got writings that are dead, we've got some statues, but a lot of them are faded. And apparently the Romans love to paint their statues. We found chips of paint on a lot of the old statues. Of course, it's all eroded away, but they had a great passion for color. apparently. So the Romans definitely had a lot of human quality. So there weren't just a bunch of like extreme like stoics that were just talking about like Greek philosophy and wearing togas all day while they're plotting how to oppress the plebs and form the best legions or whatever. They're actual humans that had senses of humor and lived real lives. And that's a really interesting thing about basically any look into history, but especially the Roman Empire. But yes, that is my rant on the Roman Empire. I could talk about it all day, but I definitely need to study up because I definitely need to study up on Aurelian. But yeah, I'd say definitely Trajan's one of the best. Like I said, I was talking about Hadrian as well being really good. And of course, Augustus founding the empire, I think, is definitely, I'd say he's definitely the most significant. And the groundwork that he laid in, with establishing the empire in 27 BC is what allowed every other emperor to do what they do. And now, of course, we're going to talk about the worst emperors. You know, you got like Nero, it's one of the worst. And then forget the last one was Augustulus Romulus in like 476, but really it was just a child who was just in an unfortunate situation. And then you had Caesar, I believe, who was the I think I was a Visigoth or a Lombard. But anyway, I mean that's when Rome basically completely collapsed. But yeah, that is really all I have for you guys. Of course, I could rant about the Roman Empire forever, but I've been going for over an hour. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. So yeah, Rippaverse is in a really good spot with Isom number 3 having come out. Really excited for the future. Of course, it's still decently early into the fulfillment window. I think we're like the end of the second week of fulfillment. So I don't think everybody's gotten their books yet. Everybody hasn't read their books yet. So it's definitely going to be really interesting to revisit the Isom Ill-Advised Dark and the entire Rippaverse in general once a bit more developed. Let's see. So yeah, check out Aurelian. Dude took over and saved the empire when it fractured into 3 parts, and he only had 5 years of rule, but he did a lot. Yeah, you can do a lot in a short amount of time. If you think about presidents, and this is a way in the future, but James K. Polk was a Democrat. He ran, I forget exactly when, but it was before the Civil War, and he had a very specific agenda. And he did all of it in one term, and then he left. And then I think maybe like a month or so after the end of his one term, he died. But James K. Polk, he said, I'm going to get this territory. I believe it was like around modern day Oregon. There was I forget exactly the phrase, but it was a conflict with the British over, I believe it was the 49th or the 52nd parallel to divide the territory between Canada and the U.S. I forget it was with the Mexican-American War. It was basically just manifest destiny, some policy decisions, and he was able to do basically everything he said that he was going to do. He did in one term, and then he left. He did not go for that second term, which was the traditional precedent. Of course, Washington ran for one term, against, even though he didn't want to, ran for another, and then he said, I'm not running anymore because I want to be a citizen, not a ruler. But yeah, and that, of course, a lot of the American rule of governance comes from the Romans. That's why we have senators, and the Romans had senators. There was the Roman Senate. Although later, especially throughout the history of the empire, the Roman Senate was more of a rubber stamp because the emperor had a very high regard. They were deified, right? Augustus was the title. Like Augustus Caesar was a more or less a title rather than being an actual name. Although you consider it an actual name for Augustus Caesar, who's Octavian, but it's a more or less a divine title because the Romans, they were very much was a pagan naturalistic religion. That's where coming from the Greek mythology, where Zeus represents the sky and Poseidon represents the ocean and Aphrodite represents fertility and those sorts of things. So the supernatural was everywhere, is very present. And of course, the emperor was a divine being in and of himself. But that's basically why the emperor had this extreme authority and was able to, and the Senate was just there to basically rubber stamp whatever he did. But of course, in the Roman Republic, the senators had a much more significant role in governance. And of course, that really went away with Julius Caesar and he became the dictator, which is why, he got stabbed in the back on March 15th. But anyway, that's really, I'd say the Imperial Senate were more like advisors as opposed to the power they had pre-empire. Exactly. So yeah, the senators, it was less of a governance role, more being advisors and a rubber stamp of what the emperor was doing. It's a really apt way to put that. But that is all I have for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of Braxcast Live. Like I said, last one for a while, so I won't be doing this again next week. Got to focus on getting myself moved. Of course, it's going to be a camping trip. I'm going to be going to Pork Fest. So if you're at Pork Fest in Lancaster, New Hampshire, I will be there throughout the entire week. So, you can meet me. I'll be selling my book, or not selling, I'll be selling Machine to Man, which is my first book. But from Debunking Gender Ideology, How to Manage Gender Dysphoria, which is the second book I wrote, that one I'll be giving out for free. I got 100 copies. I'm going to give them all out for free. So if you're there, you can meet me in person, which, I'm not sure if you want to do that, but I'll be there. You guys can meet me and I'll can give you some books as well. If you hey, I'm Joker, I watch your Braxcast stuff. But yeah, that is all I have. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Joker is out.